Welcome back to Cougars and Gigolos, the channel where we dive into the complicated, sometimes dangerous, world of love, lust, and relationships that cross the boundaries of age. Before we jump in, a quick disclaimer: everything we discuss today comes from publicly available sources. Our goal is to examine this case with care and context. We are not here to sensationalize tragedy or step on anyone's toes. Now, imagine a quiet town in Italy, Caponetto Piacentino. Life seems normal, but behind closed doors, a relationship was unraveling in a way that no one could have anticipated. Elisa Pomerelli, just 28 years old, found herself in a deadly situation with her much older partner, 45-year-old Massimo Sebastiani. On August 25, 2019, a shocking murder would shake the community to its core. Elisa was strangled in what authorities later described as a crime fueled by jealousy, control, and desperation. Sebastiani tried to cover his tracks, moving her body and tampering with evidence, but the truth would eventually come out. In this video, we're going to take you inside the story, the timeline of events leading up to the murder, the investigation that exposed the chilling details, and the warning signs that sometimes appear in relationships with large age gaps. Whether you're fascinated by true crime, curious about human behavior, or just looking for a cautionary tale about love gone wrong, this story has something for you. So, grab a seat, because by the end of this video, you'll have a full picture of what happened, and you'll understand why cases like this, though rare, are so shocking, and so revealing about the darker sides of relationships. Massimo Sebastiani was 45, a man whose presence commanded attention even before he spoke. He carried himself with a quiet authority, an air of confidence honed by years of experience, yet beneath it lay an intensity that few fully understood. Friends and colleagues described him as meticulous, disciplined, and calculated, a man who valued order and control in every aspect of his life. His routines were precise, he maintained a steady job, managed his time carefully, and approached both work and personal affairs with a methodical mindset. There was a charm to him, too, a polished demeanor, polite conversation, and the kind of attentiveness that made people feel seen and understood. But those who spent more time with him began to notice subtle patterns, a careful monitoring of his environment, a tendency to influence situations to align with his preferences, and an intensity that could quietly overwhelm. Sebastiani's personality was a mixture of discipline, confidence, and an undercurrent of possessiveness. He could be engaging and warm, offering advice and support with apparent sincerity, yet there was always a trace of control in his actions. He had an eye for detail and a mind that rarely let things go. A slight misstep, a deviation from his expectations, or a moment of perceived challenge could unsettle him. Friends noted that while he was capable of deep focus and loyalty, he also exhibited subtle jealousy and a desire to dominate social interactions without overtly asserting it. It was in these quiet behaviors, the careful observation of others, the insistence on having his way in small matters, the tension that simmered beneath calm surfaces, that glimpses of his more controlling nature emerged. Massimo's life before meeting her was a careful balance of work, routine, and social engagement. He spent his days moving through familiar rhythms, structured work hours, occasional outings with friends, and time spent maintaining the sense of order he valued so highly. He liked precision and predictability, yet he also had a fascination with connection, observing the world around him with curiosity and measuring interactions with almost clinical attention. It was through this network of acquaintances and local events that he first encountered Elisa. The meeting seemed ordinary at first, a casual introduction, a shared conversation, the kind of brief connection that could easily be forgotten. But for Massimo, something about the encounter captured his attention, drawing him into a pursuit that would eventually become all-consuming. It was a spark, subtle yet undeniable, that set in motion a chain of events that neither he nor anyone around him could have foreseen. At first, their relationship seemed like a story lifted straight from a novel, a perfect blend of affection, laughter, and shared moments that drew them closer each day. Despite the 17-year gap, Massimo and Elisa appeared perfectly balanced. He brought calm, steady presence, she brought vitality and energy that seemed to breathe life into his measured world. They spent afternoons wandering through sunlit streets, exploring small Italian towns, or sitting in quiet cafes, sharing whispered jokes that only they understood. Friends often remarked on how natural they seemed together, how easily they fell into step with one another, and how the age difference, rather than dividing them, seemed to knit them closer. On evenings when the sky was painted in shades of pink and gold, they would walk hand in hand, talking about dreams, ambitions, and the future, moments that, from the outside, radiated warmth and harmony. Yet beneath the surface of this idyllic connection, subtle tensions were quietly taking root. Massimo's controlling tendencies, barely noticeable at first, began to creep into their everyday life. Questions about where she was going, suggestions about how she should spend her time, and sharp, almost imperceptible tones in conversation hinted at a growing desire to dominate. Small disagreements, which outsiders would have dismissed, carried a weight that slowly eroded trust. Friends sometimes noticed pauses in Elisa's voice, hesitation before answering, fleeting glances that suggested unease, moments that hinted at battles no one else could see. The very traits that made Massimo magnetic, his attentiveness, his presence, his careful observation, were now quietly reshaping the dynamics of the relationship, creating invisible pressure that neither he nor anyone around fully acknowledged. The paradox of their love was striking. The same moments that revealed connection, care, and joy also masked the simmering tension underneath. The laughter and tenderness coexisted with jealousy, possessiveness, and subtle control, creating a fragile equilibrium that few could perceive. These hidden struggles, these silent confrontations behind closed doors, were building toward a breaking point, a point that would not just fracture their relationship, but escalate into a tragedy that no one could have foreseen. It was in this delicate balance, between love and tension, sweetness and shadow, that the story of their fatal relationship truly began to unfold. In the days leading up to August 25, 2019, the tension between Massimo and Elisa began to intensify, though few outside the relationship could fully grasp the storm brewing behind closed doors. On the surface, life continued almost normally, casual interactions, shared meals, and public appearances that suggested harmony. But behind the smiles, subtle warning signs were becoming more pronounced. Small disagreements over trivial matters started to escalate. Conversations that would once have ended in laughter now ended in silence or thinly veiled irritation. Friends who saw them occasionally noted a change in Elisa's demeanor, a quiet hesitation in her movements, a guardedness that had not been there before. Massimo, for his part, was becoming increasingly fixated. The controlling tendencies that had once been subtle now manifested in more obvious ways. He questioned Elisa's plans, monitored her social interactions, and sought reassurance about her feelings constantly. There were moments when he appeared almost obsessed, his attention shifting quickly from charm to intensity, leaving little room for compromise or independence. What had once seemed like protective care had now taken on a darker edge, a pressure that Elisa felt in every interaction. Each small conflict added weight to the relationship, creating invisible cracks that grew steadily stronger with each passing day. On that fateful day, the culmination of months of tension, unspoken battles, and unaddressed conflicts came to a tragic head. The arguments escalated, and the controlling impulses that had shadowed their relationship reached a critical point. It was not a sudden outburst born from a single event, but rather the accumulation of fear, jealousy, and unresolved disputes that had quietly festered. The love that had once been vibrant and nurturing became entangled with obsession and dominance, setting the stage for the horrifying act that would forever alter the lives of everyone involved. Police reports later reconstructed the timeline. By the evening of August 25, Elisa had disappeared, and it was only after concerned friends and neighbors reported unusual activity that investigators began to piece together the grim reality. The calm exterior of the relationship, the seemingly ordinary life, had been a thin veneer over an undercurrent of control, obsession, and escalating conflict, a combination that ultimately proved fatal. The tragic events of August 25, 2019, began quietly, with nothing outwardly unusual to suggest the horror that would unfold. According to police reports and investigative findings, Massimo Sebastiani confronted Elisa at their shared location, and what started as a heated argument escalated into violence. Tensions that had been simmering for months, jealousy, control, and unresolved disputes, reached a breaking point that neither could walk back from. Investigators later pieced together the sequence. During the argument, Massimo grabbed Elisa, and in a desperate act of domination and rage, he strangled her. The assault was brief but fatal. In those moments, the energy in the room shifted from confrontation to tragedy, a sudden, irreversible act that would end a young woman's life and shatter a community. Immediately afterward, Sebastiani attempted to conceal the crime. He moved her body into his vehicle, reportedly trying to disguise the circumstances of her death. Investigators noted that he deleted messages and other digital evidence from her phone, perhaps in an attempt to cover his tracks and slow the investigation. These actions, however, only heightened suspicions once friends and neighbors noticed Elisa's absence and reported it to the authorities. As police arrived and began reconstructing the scene, they found evidence that aligned with premeditation and cover-up. Forensic analysis, witness testimonies, and digital records all painted a chilling picture. The murder was not a random, impulsive act but the culmination of months of psychological tension, control, and escalating conflict within the relationship. Each step, the confrontation, the strangulation, the attempt to hide evidence, revealed the dark, fatal consequences of obsession left unchecked. The case shocked the local community. A relationship that had appeared affectionate and normal to outsiders was now understood as one that had concealed a deadly dynamic beneath its surface. In the hours following the murder, law enforcement pieced together the timeline, confirming that by the evening of August 25, Elisa was gone, and Massimo's actions had permanently altered the lives of everyone connected to the case. Almost immediately after Elisa's disappearance, concerned friends and neighbors alerted the authorities. What initially seemed like a routine missing person case quickly escalated into a full-scale investigation when inconsistencies in Massimo Sebastiani's statements began to emerge. Police meticulously retraced Elisa's last known movements, spoke with witnesses, and examined digital evidence, including phone records and messages that Massimo had attempted to delete. Each piece of the puzzle began to paint a grim picture of what had truly happened on August 25. Forensic investigators focused on the crime scene and Massimo's vehicle, uncovering traces that confirmed the fatal confrontation. The evidence showed that Massimo had attempted to manipulate the scene, moving Elisa's body and deleting digital traces to obscure his involvement. But despite these efforts, forensic science and careful detective work exposed the truth. Surveillance footage, witness accounts, and detailed examination of digital records left little room for doubt. Massimo had carried out the murder and then attempted to cover it up. Within days, authorities arrested Massimo Sebastiani. The arrest sent shockwaves through the local community. The man who had seemed orderly, calm, and respected was now the center of a horrific crime investigation. During interrogation, investigators documented patterns of controlling behavior and premeditation, which were later central to the prosecution's case. The courtroom became a stage where months of hidden tension, jealousy, and obsession were laid bare for all to see. The trial concluded with Massimo being found guilty of murder. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison, a verdict that reflected the severity of his actions and the calculated nature of the crime. In the aftermath, friends, family, and the wider community grappled with disbelief and sorrow. The case, while shocking, also served as a stark reminder of the dangers of obsession and control in relationships, especially those with underlying power imbalances. What had appeared to be a loving, ordinary connection had concealed a deadly dynamic that ended in tragedy.